I'm here with my good friend Billy Alt talking about, I just did something wrong, didn't I? Yes, I did. Talking
We're
about
talking
really,
about
I want to start again. Hi, everybody.
Okay, we're about to go.
No, Facebook, no. Hi, everybody.
Okay, we're about to go.
Okay, now we're here. Hi, everybody. It's Doc Bunny, and I'm here with our September edition of Doc Bunny's Power Lunch. And I want to welcome you all back. I know we had a little bit of a hiatus, but it was totally worth it. I'll do another show on it to kind of let you know what I've been up to. But today we are having lunch with my really good friend, Billy Alt. He's been a real estate agent for 18 years, and he even sold me my own house. So he did. I trust him like I would trust anybody who's about to sell me a house. So without further ado, Billy, how are you?
I'm great. Thank you for having me. Yes, about selling the house. That's one of my favorite things is having veterans become homeowners, right? Especially friends.
Yes.
And I'm an advocate for that. So that's really awesome. And you're an example of what everybody else can do.
Well, why don't you tell everybody else, if like the good parts, not the bad parts. So, but why don't you tell everybody about your experience with selling me my house? Because I wasn't very trusting in the beginning. So why don't you
Well,
everybody?
I mean, the truth is not many people are trusting of salespeople in general. I don't even trust them either. So it's important to educate your clients, right? The house is going to sell itself. You don't want an agent that is going to push you on something, right? It's got to work for you. The numbers got to work. The location's got to work. You got to be the one to give them guidance. Like everybody wants the Taj Mahal, but you got to start somewhere, right? And just like in your case, you started at a starter home size, right? Which is a great home, and it went up in value. So you've been able to build up equity. So if you want to eventually get into that next level, you could rent that, sell that, take that equity in or not into another property or investment properties, right? So with your situation, that was a great starting point, right? Like how many years would it take to build that kind of equity in work, like man hours or woman hours, right? To get to that point in yearly income to leverage, right? So with real estate, especially with the VA home loan, it's truly a zero down loan. And you're leveraging the government's money, right? So they're backing you, right? So when you're doing a zero down mortgage, you have no mortgage insurance. As if you were a conventional loan, you would have to put down 20% money to get to no mortgage insurance. So that's the best thing we got out of the military, in my opinion, that everybody should use. Unfortunately, we don't get good education on what our benefits are, or we're not paying attention. I could blame both sides, right? And that's where I come in. Like I said, my niche is to help military and veterans or anybody to learn how to become a homeowner. Homeownership was very, very important to me. Growing up, I told you this story the other day that I was a renter. My parents were renters most of my life. And I remember the landlords being the rich guys, right? And my dad had to work 2 jobs. So they finally saved up all their money all that time and to become homeowners, and they got scammed on a fake lease option. They got foreclosed on, which is a tearjerker, right? But the point is, I remember when they bought their first house, how proud they were to become homeowners, and I'll never forget that. No matter how, if I sell 2,000 homes or 3, that handing over those keys means something. And for the veteran community, there's something to be said about stability, right? When you have issues, PTSD, TBI, all that stuff, or anything in general with your family, if you're moving from house to house, getting forced, your rent's going higher, like we are in this market right now, our rents are still increasing or pretty much. When you have that stable number, right, and you know what your payment's going to be pretty much every year, and you know where your home's going to be, and you can have that peace and security that you know that nobody can knock you out of that as long as you keep paying your mortgage, there's a benefit to that, so I think it's a mental health thing as well, right? For families, being in the same school zone, getting friends, community versus moving every 2 weeks or months into a different place, different school zone. That's not fair to the kids, right? So there's so much that you could peel back that onion on why housing is important, and it's a catalyst to grow, right? I believe you could build generational wealth via real estate, using a zero down loan, right? I've had Air Force pilots or people from Nellis and Creech out here buy at every duty station, and their time in, by the time they're out, they have like a portfolio and they're living on their retirement money and
Wow.
their cash flow, right? Based off of government money, because the BAH paid their mortgage basically, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, I wish I can go back in time and get taught that when I was in, right? I was in the
I
reserve,
know.
but like anybody I could teach. But my point is, they don't teach you that. You're mission critical. They're worried about getting the thing done. So our job is to educate and show what your options are. That's just one piece of the pie, right? Financial literacy is a huge part, because credit scores aren't that important. In the military, you're getting your paycheck every 2 weeks, and you're used to that. When you get out in civilian world, you have to pay your bills on time, you have to get paychecks, and it doesn't automatically come. So you have to be very smart about your credit. And credit does save you not only in housing, but your car payment, credit for credit cards, all those things. And now as rates are going up, that's even more important, because you want that best credit rating.
Right.
So
Right. That is a lot. So what advice would you give to somebody just first starting out? They're wanting to buy a home, but they're not really sure.
right.
They're not really sure about the process, but okay, let's use me for an example. For example, okay, guys, my landlord was going to raise my rent almost $400. So I said, later for that, I'm gonna think about buying, because I'm not gonna, this space isn't worth that much of an increase. So I called Billy, and I said, hey, I think it's time for me to look around at some houses. And he took me out on a Saturday morning, and I actually bought the first house I saw. Now, you're not supposed to do that. Don't do that. But it had been a neighborhood that I lived in when I first moved here. So we were comfortable here. So that's why we love it so much. But what do you say to the person who's getting a $400 rent increase, and they're like, should I buy or should I continue to rent?
Right. And to be honest, in the last few years, it's been more than that. In some situations, it's been insane how much it's gone up. So I tell them, I say, listen, you got to start today for tomorrow, right? Everybody is, oh, I'll do it tomorrow. I'll do it tomorrow. But when you're ready, you need to do some things potentially, like I said before, with the credit to offset some things to get above a 680 at least credit score. So you get a paper, they call that. So the best credit, best interest rate possible, because the lower your interest rate, the more house you qualify for based on your income, right? It's a simple math equation the lender will go through. So the first step is, hey, listen, talk to the lender, and make sure that your debt to income ratios and you qualify, you have your VA eligibility all set up, right, on e-benefits and all that, and they could pull it easily now online. It used to be harder. And if you happen to be 10% or over disabled with the VA, you don't have to pay a funding fee, which is amazing, right? So you don't have to pay that fee. And just so you understand that, a funding fee goes on top of the loan. It's not out of pocket. And don't hold me to these numbers. I'm not a lender, but I think it's the first use is like 2.25 on top. And the second one is definitely 3.6. So the second time you use it, you could use your VA multiple times, which most of the older Vietnam veterans don't realize they could use it because it changed since then, right? You could only use it once back then. So there's so many clients I've taught that you could use it over and over as long as you pay it off or have eligibility left. Okay. So going back to the rent question, yeah, I mean, listen, why not pay yourself every month versus the landlord? You're making them rich. You're going to have to pay somebody anyway. You might as well pay yourself. To me, I was never a good saver when I was younger. I'm better now when I have kids, but I call it forced savings. When you pay $1,000 a month of payment or $1,500, a good portion of that goes toward principal, which is your forced savings, right? Of course, you're going forced savings down and then potential appreciation up. Of course, we've had a really good run in the last 12 years of appreciation up. We're going through a market right now where there's a sort of a correction going on. So there's no guarantee of appreciation today. However, I still believe in homeownership, and there's ways to work in better rates and get seller concessions right now that we weren't able to do a few years ago, or even just 6 months ago. And let's face it, our veterans and FHA buyers, or first-time home buyers, so to say, have had a really hard time in the last few years because we're competing with Wall Street, the hedge funds and institutional investors and private investors, right? So there's so much cash that was in the market. Now they're pulling back and it's leaving us opportunity with more inventory. We have about, in Vegas right now, we have between a 3 and 3.5 month supply. And just put that in perspective, probably a year ago, there was less than a month's supply. So the prices were skyrocketing. People were paying cash above appraisal. It was hyperinflated. Now it's leveling out, going back to the 2019 pre-COVID feeling. We are pulling back a little bit. We're not crashing. At this point, I feel very confident that as long as I think rates will pull back into next year when the Fed calms down. So there's great buying opportunities. That's my thing. So you always, in my opinion, you always want to start looking when everybody's running the other way, right? You don't want to buy when everybody else is buying, right? And it may not be for you, right? But if you don't own a house and you don't live in one and you could afford it, it makes sense. And even in the worst, I've been in long enough to been through the crash, right, of 08, right, from before and after that. And even the ones that were at the worst part of that are 15 to 20% above where they were at that point from the bottom, right? So over time, real estate is always a good leverage game. I can't guarantee what you're going to make, obviously, because that would be wrong. But most millionaires are made or use a good portion of that from real estate.
So you were a baby real estate agent in 2008, weren't you? Like a baby one. How is that different from right now? Because a lot of people are comparing like this slowdown to that crash. And is it the same?
Not, yeah, great question. I get this all the time. So there was a whole different ballgame back then. Back then, they were doing stated income, stated asset loans, pay option arms, where you could pay negative amortization on a loan, like not pay your full payment every month, because they were just banking on appreciation. Cash flow didn't happen because the rates were high, higher on those payments, and the prices were high. So people were buying. They weren't putting skin in the game, so to say, any money down. Like the VA loan is good, but most other people were doing zero as well, or 80-20 loans, they called them. And they weren't, like, people were buying 10 houses at once. So when the market turned, these people, the investors that had 10 houses, they let them all go. They said, here, take them back, bank. We don't care. Once you start the momentum going down and people can't afford it, it just started a snowball effect. We overcorrected in Las Vegas, a couple of places like Orlando, Atlanta, like we got hit hardest, right? We were the first on the way up and the first on the way down, right? So the difference between today and then is people are mostly buying these to live in, or they were cash flowing and had such a low rate that they're not going to, it's hard to get sellers right now. Believe it or not, we have a lower amount of listings right now. It's just that there's a lack of buyers in the market because they're scared, right? People are scared of a lot of things, Bitcoin, Wall Street, right? Like all those things are getting beat up. So people are scared. It's common. But what happens, like I said before, when people are scared, that's the time to potentially get in. You got to talk to all your finances. It's not for everybody, but for me, I own this house I live in. And if I found the right opportunity, I would buy again any day. It just depends on the way you buy in. You have to have the deal in any investment. And when I say investment, it could be the house I live in. It's always an investment to me, right? I always look how I get out of it before I get into it. So what would be my options today if it didn't work out? I just got a text right now from a guy that bought for me in the Air Force, active duty right now here at Nellis. And he bought for me 8 months ago, and he's getting deployed for over a year and he wants to sell. Oh. So I have to, so now that's a military situation, right? So I have to go back and say, hey, we talked about this. I said, you're probably going to be better off renting it than selling it right now in a 6-month period, right? Because you didn't have enough equity in there. Or you take a loss and you're okay with it, right? But like he's asking me his options, but I know we have a good option because he had a really low interest rate, and I know he could leverage that house and make income while he's away. Why would you sell it, right? As a sales guy, that's not probably I'm what's best for the client guy. I know they'll come back if I do the right thing. The golden rule: you treat everybody as if you want to be treated, right? Because like you said in the beginning, I was always scared of salespeople because they're going to sell you ice to an Eskimo, right? But the truth is, if you tell people the truth of what you're feeling, and you're never always 100% right, but most of the time you could feel it when you're busy on the street doing that job, is where that market's headed, right? So for that situation, that guy is going to probably rent it and make cash flow. So when he comes back, he has a house to live in. He's got that same lower rate. He doesn't have to worry about renting again, and he has income, hopefully, or potential equity, from more equity.
Oh,
So,
yeah.
yeah, the difference in the buyer now and the situation in the market is night and day. Will we go through a rocky time? Yeah, I think we're potentially going to a major, a shallow or a major recession. I think that depends on. Right now, the good thing about Las Vegas, and I speak on Las Vegas because real estate is localized now, right? More than ever. Vegas could be going down and Phoenix could be going up, right? We don't know the area. So I'm only speaking on what I invest in right now and I
Right.
work in. So Vegas, our unemployment numbers are great, right? People are still coming here every weekend with record $1 billion deals on the casinos. They're making money, right? Until that changes and we see unemployment, which could affect our market, I don't foresee a huge glut of housing coming on or foreclosures or short sales, right?
Yeah.
So I haven't seen that happen yet. Right now, it's a bunch of people. I think the sellers right now are the amateur investors who just said, hey, I'll take the money and roll it. I'll take it because I'm scared it's going to go down. Or somebody that has the opportunity, I call it the boomerang family, like where they can move back in with their family, they'll take that money. One thing to pay attention to, though, in the market is credit card debt is rising
Yeah.
right now. Those are things I pay attention to. And this is a national thing. I can't speak on just Vegas alone. But when people over leverage, that's when bad things start happening, right? So we want to pay attention going into this economic situation where we're going, you know.
That was my very next question.
Mhm.
We have determined we're getting ready to take a bumpy ride. How do
Yeah.
you position yourself so that you come out on the other side?
So for me, I'm speaking not as Billy the realtor, Billy as the investor at this time, right? Is that okay? Can I speak that way? Right. So I'm,
Anything you want.
yeah. So this is, you know, the cautionary thing. Whatever I say is not, you know, but I am working on lines of credit right now for myself. I know that you and Milton are talking about that as well. I'm working on how I could have more leverage, more money when the market changes. So there's opportunity, because the opportunities don't last long, right? Because once the opportunities happen, those hedge funds will be back and then we're going to be bounced out, right? You want to get in that sweet spot before they get in, and there'll be opportunity off market or on market potentially, right? So how do I do it? Do I start raising money with the OPM, other people's money? Do I start calling up my friends and family and saying, hey, everybody got 20, 30 grand to jump in. We'll go buy a house. We'll start one. We'll do two, like the baby steps. I could even get into a little bit more depth, and we could probably talk about this for a whole seminar later about self-directed IRAs and your retirement income. Did you know you could buy houses with that or share with your personal self? That's something I teach other realtors even. So we can go into that another day, but that's really like stockbrokers don't tell you that's illegal because they don't make money on it, right? But it is. So there's so many different options I'm looking at, and banking relationships, learning what your lines of credit are, like for instance, know what your numbers are, because like I said, I got to learn how to get out of it before I get into it, but I also want to know my numbers, how long the money is good for, how much I have to pay. Do I have to pay points? Is it private money? Is it hard money? Or is it institutional money? Like, can I get a regular conventional loan? And how much is that? Do I have the reserves seasoned? I want to do all that stuff now, because when I get that deal, I don't have time to think about it, right?
Yeah.
That seller needs that money right then and there, and somebody else would swoop in on that deal. So that's that. Now, if you're living in a house, same thing, just get lined up with your lender. If you need to fix your credit, get on it now. Let's set up a plan for tomorrow. I mentioned this earlier, I didn't finish it. It's like 2 years from now starts today, right? Even if you're not ready today, if you're renting, I promise you, it will help you at the very least, your credit card bills and all that. But if you could set yourself up for the best interest rate for tomorrow, if you're not ready today, or if you have a year-long lease, a year goes quick, right?
Yeah.
Things happen in a year, right? So you want to be prepared, you know? That's what I'm
Okay.
doing.
All right. And so, okay, so let's say someone wants to become a real estate agent.
Mhm. God bless them. Yeah, yeah.
Why don't you share with everyone about what happens if you want to become a real estate agent?
So I had this conversation with an Army, a 28-year-old Army veteran, and he did a couple other companies and was not successful, but he had a great talent with people, right? And it was just, he got into the restaurant business, bad business for him.
Yeah.
So he came to me the other day. We met at the Leather Nut Club. I don't know if you guys are familiar down in Spring
Oh
Mountain, Marine
yeah,
Corps.
yeah. We need to have
Yeah.
lunch there one day.
Yes, we do. One of my favorites. Ghost is a great guy. So I had lunch with him, and one thing I paint the picture for any newbie coming into the industry, because nobody really told me, I just got in. You don't make money, like you don't put a sign in the yard and make money overnight. It's like any other business. You got to get your license, do your dues, do all that, and then build a database and then learn, right? There's a lot to learn in real estate. After 18 plus years, I'm still learning every day. The market changes. The good thing about the market right now is the last 12 years has gone straight up. So every realtor, 70% plus of realtors that we're in, have seen a down market. I think that separates myself from them,
Wow.
right? Because I know how
Oh,
to handle
wow.
things differently.
Oh,
Um,
so let me ask. So they're not able to see the market coming like you did because you already been through a down market.
I mean, that's what I say. Like, I wouldn't say for everybody, some people learn, but like most of them, most people, if you haven't seen it, you don't know it, right? Or you just imagine it. But I've lived it, and I think this is less than last time. But there's different techniques and tactics you use in marketing, and ways to do things that you have to be adapt and overcome, just like in the military, right?
Right.
So for the newbie coming in, it'd be very important, in my opinion, to join a team that has that knowledge, right? And understands the VA loan, understands those specific niches, right? So I specifically, my two main niches is investment and VA, right? The VA was more so of my give back to the veteran community, but it became a big thing for me, and it became a business source. I
Yeah.
give back a lot of nonprofit, and that's another like way I do business, but I believe in giving back to the community. And just like you, right? Like, I think that's why we always got along, right? We're givers, right?
Givers.
Sometimes
And
too
Billy's
much,
my
but
birthday, and we're birthday twins too.
yes, we are on the cusp, right? Both of us together in the cancer cusp.
Yep.
But yeah, I mean, listen, I think that for a newbie coming in, get your license. There's so many ways to learn in real estate. We were talking about tax liens. We were talking about flips. We were talking about buy and hold. We're talking about notes, right? You could become the lender for somebody else. There's so many different ways to make money. But concentrate on a couple of things. Don't try to do it all at once. You will not be able to understand it all, right? You get good at something and then let it roll, right? Don't try to do it all in one day.
Yeah.
That's my opinion.
Yeah, it's a lot in one day. It's you can't take it all in at
Yeah.
like at the same.
Make some base hits. Like I was the guy that in 04 through probably whatever, all these years, that when they did the Robert Allen seminars or those late night infomercials, I would be the guy that they called and said, hey, can you get them on a bus tour and show them properties and teach them investing? So these people would pay these people like 30, 40, $50,000 for stuff that they should I could tell them anyway, right? Like, but God bless them, they were learning. My point is, you don't need that stuff. You just stick to the basics, learn one thing, get with a good team, like a power team, like we've talked about, right? And get to know and trust. And then it also works back and forth. When you start referring people and bringing people into the network, it helps everybody, right? And it builds from there. So especially going into this kind of market, right? That's more important than ever, because we got to stick together, right? And I believe we all rise together when we help each other out, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Sticking together is key. So you brought it up a minute ago. I know you're a big community service guy. You do community service like nobody's business, kind of like me a little bit, but community service is really important to you. How are you? What are your plans or goals for your community service?
So I typically pick this year, I'm picking five different veteran related nonprofits. So I like to touch it doesn't have to, but it ends up being, there's plenty of veteran opportunities to hit different things. Like for instance, I like to help kids. So Horses for Heroes does the thing with the kids and the military, right? So I could help two things at once, I'm on the board of directors for Rebuilding Together Southern Nevada. And I was mentioned to you the other day that we were able to get a HUD grant for $600,000 and strip down a fourplex and rebuild it for low-income female housing. That's like right up our wheelhouse in real estate. And low-income homeowners we want to get them to get off that to the next level up, right? And we figured out there was a need for female veterans to be separated because in that situation, because they were going back to the street and there was issues, like, you know what I mean? So they needed their own separate place, not separated for any other reason, but like more to have their own place to be safety, right? And kids and all that stuff, right? So that's one need. We hope to grow that into hundreds of units in the future with the government funding, but that's fun. It's something different I never did before, and that's really cool to do it. But yeah, just like there's different nonprofits out there. There's so many great ones, but I try to pick 4 or 5 and I support them. And then, you know what? You go to bed at night knowing that you did the right thing. And I feel blessed that I'm in a situation to be able to give back a little bit, right? That I can't guarantee that forever, but while I can, and I'm teaching my kids too. I'm teaching the next generation of how to give. And I know that you believe in that as well, because it's not about us only. It's about what the legacy we leave behind, right?
Right, absolutely, absolutely. And it's like just when you volunteer, even if you're having a crappy day, you feel better because you have given to somebody else. So whenever you're like in a rut, I'll be like, hey, why don't you go volunteer somewhere? Because it's
Yeah,
always a
it's
good
true.
thing. It's true.
Yeah,
It's
and nobody's ever gone broke donating, right? Like giving
no,
back, right?
no.
So, and at the very least, if you don't have the cash, which is fine, sweat equity, right?
But donate your time.
Pick up a shovel, pick up a shovel, let us do some rocks, so.
Absolutely. So Billy, the last question I have for you is what are your, okay, 2 questions. What are your
Yeah.
short-term goals? And what are your longer term goals that you're going to knock out this year?
So short-term goals, I won't say in specifics because I'm still in the process of making that decision.
Okay.
But I am in the middle of a transition of companies. I'm building something more geared toward the military, but I'll do everything. But that's my short-term goal. So I'm working on that day to day, because whenever you move a company, there's a lot of moving parts with marketing and transition. So it's an exciting time, but also a lot of work on the back end. So that's where I am today. So you can't see the gray hairs because of the gel, but they're coming out, but I'm excited for it. And, sometimes, how you get stale, sometimes you need a little kick in the butt, and you're like, this is my time. So also in my short-term goals, COVID got the best of me on my love handles. I have been working my butt off to try to reduce those. I've worked out every day for the last 3 weeks after my doctor said you're fat. So I am now, I lost 8 pounds, and I plan on being here for a little bit longer. So I'm going to continue that. Right. So that's my short-term goals. Long-term goals. I just had a good conversation with a financial advisor, and I have invested some money in T-bills for long-term holding pattern, which is treasury bills. If you don't know, they're about 3%, which is a pretty good number in a market like this. It's a little bit off its side. And I'm also getting a line of credit on that, so I could use it for real estate if I need it in the meantime. And long-term goals also, I'm going to pick up probably in the next couple of years. I want about, when I say units, I could probably get multi-units, but probably like 10 units at least for cash flow in 2 years, maybe 2.5 years. Just to, that would be my goal, to hold them forever unless something changed in the market, and have that income coming, to not depend on Social Security in 20, 30 years when I'm ready to retire. My financial advisor asked me the hard question the other day. He's like, when are you going to retire? I'm like, I'm never going to retire, but I want to know I can. Right. You know what I mean? Like I love real estate, and I'll probably do deals all the time, but I want the ability to say, I don't have to work today. Right. That freedom, that's financial freedom. Right. And I want to get to that. So
I lied about the last question. I'm sorry. I did. I like to think of the future. And my last question to you, I promise, is do you think we'll be able to pay real estate with cryptocurrencies in the future?
Yes, I know that there's classes out there I have not taken yet, but one of my potential business partners in the future is at one right now for, what do you call it? NFTs?
NFTs,
and Bitcoin, right? Yeah. She's there right now on a 4-day thing down on the strip somewhere, right?
Oh, really? Oh, man.
So I'll give you some more intel on that. I'll give you more intel on that later. But that's honestly, like we talked the other day, I am not deep into Bitcoin myself, but I'm interested. And I do believe that real estate will adapt to the new things, because we have to, right? The common currencies. Like everything, we're going through a bumpy ride with Bitcoin and everything, but I think it'll come out. the strong will survive in that market. And we'll see what the government ends up doing with all those. That'll help guide us what's going to make it or break it, so to say. And there's been a lot of, I've noticed that there's been a lot of companies that were sketchy at best, right? And then now the good ones will stand out, right?
Yeah, with cryptocurrency, with NFTs, with Bitcoins, with tokens, it's buyer beware. It is like the Wild West. So you have to do your due diligence.
Yes. So I know that the future is here now. Will this potential recession slow things down? I think what it will do is actually bring the best to the top. And people will stop betting on things, right? I think we got so crazy over the last couple of years with extra money and sitting at home going nuts that people were doing the meme stocks, people were doing the Bitcoins, like not the Bitcoin, but the smaller ones that were just nobody knew, and they were betting. If they hit, they were going to make it rich. But I think there'll be strong companies that come out of this, and we will adapt in our industry. I know they will.
Oh, wow. And I'm going to leave it just at that because that was so strong. So you guys, thank you so much for joining us for Doc Bunny's Power Lunch. I'm so grateful to be back. And thank you for watching, and I'll see you later. Bye.
Bye, everybody. Thank you for having me.